Hello, beautiful. I'm in my another little hideout in the woods where I go to get away from the house, where the kids can't find me usually, and I can just have some time with the Lord. Look at this tree. You know, He calls you beautiful. He has me say that every day on purpose. And at one point, my prayer is that you're going to believe it. You're going to believe it. I'm going to try to get through this without bawling my eyes out. But I'm going to share the story about Tears in a Teacup, or at least just parts of it. You're going to have to read the book. It's this teacup. It's the only teacup I have. It's beautiful. It was made in Europe. And I'll tell you about Hattie, my friend. So one day, I'd been going to the nursing home for just a few months at this point, and when I go see my brother, I walk the halls and I would go into other rooms, and you know what? Love compels you. Love compels you to go into the places you would never venture on your own, let me tell you. So one day, my daughter Kaylee was with me, and she's like, Mom, you have to come in and see this woman. She is suffering. She's covered in these itchy boils. I mean, like, literally top of her head to the tips of her toes. And she's like, we got to go pray for her. So we go in there and begin to minister to her and pray for her. And then Kaylee, I mean, she's on it. She's on it. My kids, I'm just so blessed. I'm telling you. They've got in their early 20s what it took me to get to 40. But she just begins to lead her to Christ. She's like, do you know Jesus? And she said, no, I don't. So she's leading her to Christ. There's a curtain. And most people know you don't pull the curtain. But what do? I pull the curtain. I'm going to see who's behind the curtain, and I pull the curtain, and I wave, and I say, well, hello. And there's this beautiful European accent, and she says, well, hello, my dear. I'm not going to be able to speak like her. But anyway, she was German, and I come around the corner, and I just start chit-chatting with her, and her name is Hattie, and I said, Hattie, can I pray for you? And she said, oh, no, my dear. Oh, no, my dear. And she is as fragile as can be. She's skin and blown. I could see all of her veins through her translucent skin, on oxygen, hardly any hair left, just really fragile. Okay, I don't know how many breaths she has left. And I said to her, I said, well, Hattie, I said, you don't want to know Jesus? And she said, no. It was emphatic. It was not angry, but it was emphatic. And then I pushed further because love compels me. And I said, Hattie, I said, I don't want to be disrespectful, but you look kind of close to, the end. I said, the horrors of death are real without Jesus. And she looked at me straight in my eyes and she said, I have tasted the horrors of this life, and I have lived to tell. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, okay. And I said, well, can I still come talk to you and be your friend? And she said, of course, my dear. So I started to develop this friendship, and it happened within 7, 8, maybe 9 days, where I fell madly in love with this old lady, and there's no earthly reason why. There's no earthly reason why. It's just the love of God compelled me. And when I told you that love will chase you down, love will chase you down. He died for her. And I'm convinced if anybody that doesn't want Jesus is because they don't know him. Nobody would reject Jesus if they know him and they know his love. So he pursued her so hard. So I get up the next morning and I'm doing a million things, and the Lord just whispers to me, I want you to take Hattie a cup of tea. I want you to bring, it was very specific. I want blueberry pomegranate tea, and I want you to take it in the most beautiful teacup you have. And so I go and I find the one teacup I had right here. And And I go and I'm like, I don't even know. Why would I have blueberry pomegranate tea? I'm not a tea drinker. Sure enough, my mom had left tea, and I look in the back of the cupboard, and there was one. And I brought it to her, and I said, Hattie, let's have tea together. And she was moved. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she's sipping on her tea, and I look at her, and I say, Hattie, the Jesus that you don't believe in told me to bring you this tea. It was very specific. And she didn't say anything. She just sipped on her tea. And we sipped on the tea and we talked, and I found out that she was from Nazi Germany, and the horror she was talking about was the Holocaust. And the only reason she escaped the Holocaust was she fell in love with an American CIA agent. So this is like a movie. She fell in love with an American CIA agent. And I'm not going to be able to tell you this whole story because it'll take too long. But God pursued her so hard. And she looked down and she drank the tea and she looked up at me and she said, my dear. She called me my dear. She said, my dear, this is the most delicious cup of tea I have ever tasted. And then she looked away and her eyes were far away. And I knew what she was saying. I knew God reached her heart. He began to reach her heart in that moment. She wasn't just tasting tea, she was tasting God. She was tasting God. She was tasting and seeing the God that she thought was cruel and far away and angry. It's close and near and knows her inside out. That He knew her favorite tea. He knew this German teacup would mean something to her. And she hid the teacup underneath her thigh, so when I would come the next day, because people steal things in these places, and she hid it, and I came and had tea, and the next day God said, bring her a beautiful bouquet of flowers from your garden, and it was November, and I brought the most exquisite, fragrant bouquet of flowers that I have ever seen, and I brought it to her, and I said, Hattie, the Jesus that you don't believe in, He told me to bring you these flowers, and you're His fragrant garden, and your heart is His garden, and He wants to live there. And she didn't say anything. She just sipped her tea, but I knew He was reaching. So this is like a love affair that's happening furious and fast with God and with me and Hattie. And it was like the 4th day, maybe 5th day, and I brought my poetry book, the Remember Me poetry, and I knew because God told me she loves poetry. She's a very smart, intellectual woman. And so I said, Hattie, you love poetry, don't you? And she said, oh, my dear, I love poetry. And I knew she would know Wordsworth. It's one of the only classics I knew by heart about daffodils. And we started it together and finished it together. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. And she, I said, can I read you a poem that Jesus wrote? He wrote it over me when I was super sick. And He pursued me, a broken shell of a person that didn't have any hope. And I didn't know how I was going to get out. And I couldn't hold on to Him, but He held on to me in His firm grip of grace. And I looked at her and I showed her I had this on the cup of the New Covenant. And I said, Hattie, listen to me. I said, this is God telling you. And I said, taste and see that I am God. The first, the last, the same. Just drink. Just drink. Drink and eat. I'll complete the work for which I came. Living waters flow from deep within my vine. Fruit of my flesh, your skin's made fresh to carry my new wine. Hattie, everlasting marriage, by my own blood we're bound. I'll never leave to my word cleave. Your heart's now holy ground. And as I said that, tears just fell down her face. And I knew He was reaching her. But there wasn't time. The next time I came, an ambulance truck was there. And yes, I'm one of those crazy ones. I'm an ambulance chaser. If God tells me to be an ambulance chaser, I'm going to be one. And If he tells me to go march into the emergency room, I'm gonna do it. And I did. And I'm not gonna tell you the rest of the story right now, but it's incredible how he pursued her to the very last breath. He's amazing. And he loves you. That blood he shed was liquid love. He pursued Hattie, he pursued Patsy, he pursued Greg, he pursued just a whole line of people in this nursing home that never knew him. They're with him now, in my garden, sipping on tea and quoting poetry that is otherworldly from his heart. It's the treasury of Remember Me More. It's not me. I couldn't do this in a million years. It's him. But he wants you. He wants you. And you know what? He wants to kiss you awake. That's his desire, is to kiss you awake, because he's a loving father. But if he has to, he will shake you awake. He wants you to wake up to true life and stop going through the motions and wasting time and wasting breaths and wasting days. He's got plans for you, and he wants you to be about it. And I'm telling you, if you will, your joy will be full. I love you. You're amazing. Shalom.